Hey, welcome to the Art Condition Podcast, a weekly show that will discuss the business, community, and often undiscussed stress and mental health concerns of being a professional artist, or even a serious hobbyist. I'm Joby. I've been in the tattoo and illustration professions for 25 years. My co-host is Moose, a data analyst, social media manager, and art agent. If you enjoy the content, please consider visiting the Patreon page in the show notes to help support the effort. Or if that's not an option, please like, subscribe, leave a good review, or just share with your friends. And definitely go visit the links of our guests on this episode. Thanks for listening, and have a great day. This week, Blake Davis returns to the podcast. The first time we had Blake on, he was joined by Gavin Gray Valentine, another accomplished artist, and we talked about Kickstarter, as both of them have found a lot of success on that platform. On this episode, we dive a little deeper into Blake's career as a professional artist, and we talked some hard truths about building a livelihood as a creative. We all know that life isn't all wins, and yet, how often do we find ourselves feeling inadequate in comparison to the accomplishments of others? We speak in terms of success and failures, but how often are we comparing our failures with other people's successes? And what do those words even mean? How do you quantify a failure if it is part of a bigger process that ultimately leads you to a big win? Blake is open and honest about the ups and downs of his journey, and through his story we can develop our own perspective on what success and failure means. So please listen closely. These can be difficult and painful topics to discuss, and they require us to be vulnerable, and it can be very difficult to find places where we feel safe to do that. I hope we can have more conversations like this in the future. It's not all sunshine and roses, but the rain and thorns can be beautiful as well. Enough of my philosophical rambling. Here's Blake, and please enjoy. All right, Blake, man, thank you so much for coming back.
Dude, yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, now we have you all to ourselves. We don't have to share you with that silly Gavin guy.
With that handsome, talented man. Jeez.
I was about to say, I just did a shout out for you on his Discord, so he hops in. That would be rather awkward.
Yeah, let's just talk about him a bunch. No, let's quickly recap. You have been on before. This is your second time here, right? Tell us a little bit about yourself, though, for those that didn't watch that past episode, and God forbid may never watch that first episode. Give us a little bit of...
It is one of our most popular episodes, interestingly.
It
Really?
is. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my name is Blake. I am an illustrator. I do a wide variety of things, which we will talk about today. But I think I'm probably known more for my fantasy illustration. I've wanted to be an artist my whole life, and been doing a lot of different things to get there. More stuff that we'll talk about. So I think this is going to be a really cool conversation.
Well, the first time that we had you on, we were talking all about Kickstarter, because
Right.
You had not too terribly long before that episode aired. You had made a really successful Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
But what have you been doing since then, since we talked to you last?
Mostly freelance. After that Kickstarter, it was all like I dove headfirst into doing D&D commissions, book covers, stuff like that, for independent clients. And then most recently, just a few months ago, beginning of the year, I got a full-time job as a homeschool materials illustrator, kind of like a children's book illustrator, except it's for education. Yeah.
Time flies. That was like 6 months ago, right?
Dude, yeah. Jeez, that was 6 months ago. Time really flies when you have no time to yourself.
Time flies when you have a second kid, right?
Yeah.
Well, current career stuff and career stuff in general is definitely going to be a big part of what we're talking about. But you went through something, in the course of getting busier and kind of like ramping up your freelance and really putting the full steam into it, that I think is worth talking about. It's a very important part of the whole professional artistic experience, and it does get talked about. It's debatable whether it gets talked about enough, and that's like physical injury. And you went through something pretty serious that you had to like really address and take seriously. Can you describe to us like what the injury was, what you think exacerbated it, and what you did about it?
Yeah. So leading up to that event, I was let's see. So okay, so in the year prior, a little bit of backstory because this will explain why this happened. Um, I had lost my graphic design job. I was working full time as a graphic designer for vehicle wraps, and then lost the job very suddenly, very unexpectedly. And so I dove headfirst into doing conventions and some freelance. I was just barely starting, so there wasn't a whole lot of freelance going on. So start doing convention sales with my own original prints, whatever, and that was like I was making just barely enough to get by, but nothing substantial, and so I'm trying to push a little bit more freelance. And then towards the end of that year, or like November, December, is where it started to really kick off, mostly thanks to Moose's assistance, actually, helping to put me in the right direction. And then I got a ton of work really fast, and I was really excited. I was pumping out a commission a day, just boom, 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 see a character every single day. I'm streaming like it was like 8 hours a day, sometimes a little more. Or I would work like 10, 12 hours a day, but stream like half of it. It was just so much work. Um, but more than just the amount of work, I was also not paying attention to my posture, not paying attention to how I'm gripping the pen, and not paying attention to other drawing processes. So I'm a big fan of a lot of detail in my drawing, a lot of really, really tiny detail. I love doing it. I love how it looks. Um, but my weakness was drawing chainmail specifically. I really like doing that. Nobody does, and I found out why, because it'll cause injury. So I would draw these little tiny circles, and this repetitive motion, along with death grip and bad posture, and also putting pressure on my wrist in the wrong place. So I had my tablet tilted in such a way that I wasn't resting my elbow or anything like that. It was just putting pressure, like basically right here on this wrist. So all those things combined together, along with no breaks, just working straight, no stretching, no icing, nothing, led to this happened on stream. It led to me like not even able to hold my stylus anymore.
Hmm.
It was hurting to the point where I couldn't like move. I couldn't. So I started to draw, just like hold my wrist and just like do this on stream. And then, yeah. And then later I couldn't even hold the pen right. Like my wrist had just given up. So the tendons had inflamed all through my palm up into my elbow, and down the back of the hand too. They just inflamed so bad. So uh I knew that Sal, the Dark Cloak, another great artist and streamer, had a similar issue happen to him, and so I talked with him about it, and he gave me some really great insight, as well as oh gosh, I'm forgetting her name. Another fantastic artist and streamer. She does like the black and white,
Daria.
cut out. Thank you. Yes, Daria. Uh, also gave me some fantastic advice because she does a lot of those micro details, really complex stuff. And after talking with them, I learned, all right, I gotta slow down. I gotta, get a brace. I gotta ice frequently. I gotta stretch frequently. Um, and after after probably a couple of and also not just taking a break from drawing, taking a break from like using the hand at all. There was one week where I was like, okay, I'm going to go on this family vacation, so I'm going to take a week off of drawing, obviously, and I should be fine after that. Well, I spent so much time on my damn phone, it didn't actually do anything. So it was still the same little micro movements that that still kept the tendons inflamed, so that did nothing. So if you're having this kind of problem, don't pick up your phone, or start train up your left hand to do everything. I had to do a lot of that too. I even had to teach myself how to eat with my left hand. um Shampoo my hair with just my left hand. Like it was really difficult. It was frustrating. But yeah, eventually the pain completely went away. After continual stretching and icing and keeping my wrist braced when I'm not using it. To now, I don't even notice it anymore, but I've also changed how I work a little bit. I draw a little bit more loose. I'll do some tiny details, but nothing like, the repetitive circular motions like that. That's the killer. In fact, I remember specifically I had gone, several months like without that pain at all, and then I did one commission where I was like, all right, I'm going to draw this chainmail, and then at the end of that commission, my wrist flared up again. Right away. I'm like, okay, now I know I can never draw chainmail again. So I made a brush that that does the chainmail for me. I gave up. It's too bad because it's like still one of my favorite things to do. But that's fine. I'd rather give that up than lose the ability to draw entirely. So
Real quick, since you mentioned her, Daria does currently have a sale going on because she lost a lease on her what's called the studio.
oh, no.
So she's doing a 30% off everything sale. So if you want to go to DariaAxanovaArt.com, you can buy stuff right there. There's no promo code needed, just already applied at checkout. So the follow-up question for that is how old are you? Like, this seems like it's something that you only assume would happen to someone that's like 90 years old, right? When they're about to retire.
Yeah, I'm 31. I'm young, but it can still happen to you. Slightly off topic, but age does not matter with health. It really doesn't. Like, so I have a very poor diet. Most people know that. I'm a fast food junkie. And just a few weeks ago, I had some weird like gallbladder pain. Like I'm developing gallstones in here. It's because of a super bad, really bad diet of lots of cholesterol and fat. And I'm not like an overweight guy. Like I'm not huge, I'm really not, but it doesn't matter. And I'm not old, but it doesn't matter. If you don't take care of yourself, you're going to get sick or hurt.
And similarly, Forrest Immel, he recently started having problems with his hands, and not because of drawing, but it does affect him while drawing. He started gardening.
Oh, no.
And then the gardening carried over to his
that'll
work.
do it, especially in your knuckles. That'll do it.
It'll be interesting to see if it goes away or if it
man.
stays with him for the rest of his career now. Because
Yeah.
if he stops gardening, maybe it'll go away, or who knows, maybe it just started up. And so even if you're not doing anything that's related to drawing, you can possibly still injure yourself. So
yeah, gardening is supposed to be the thing that that you do to like relax and recharge and do something with your body that's healthy. What the fuck?
Well, it depends on how you do it, because Sal Darkcloak said this did the same thing actually when his wrist was like completely useless. He took up sculpting as a way to to do something creative while not working his wrist, and that actually did help him. So I wonder what it was specifically about gardening that that made that happen. That's interesting.
Specifically, it was pulling weeds. So may that be a different type of gardening that's more strenuous than.
Yeah, there's definitely better and worse ways to pull weeds. As a mild gardening aficionado myself, that's neither here nor there. But that idea of doing something different with your body, or with the muscles to activate and engage different muscles, That's one thing. I went through some pretty bad tendonitis a long time ago as well. Similar to you, I got like a stretching regimen down and stuff like that. But one thing I that came up a lot in sort of trying to research what to do about it was this idea of that those muscles are just like locked in, they're overworked, and you have to. It makes sense when you hear it, but like you're not thinking about it objectively while you're going through it. But you gotta, if you're using muscles on this side of your body, well, you've got to work out the muscles that are like directly opposite that, like whatever the counterbalancing muscles are, that you have to pay attention to that. But I'm curious, you mentioned some icing and some stretching. Like what was your sort of like daily habit to ease yourself out of that?
Out of the pain or out of the stretching?
To ease yourself out of the pain. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything too crazy. Just some basic simple stretches. Just kind of pull back on your fingers for a few seconds, and then kind of this way. Stretch out the thumb. Grab it like that, and then kind of pull down. Like nothing too crazy. And I would do that whenever I would start. Pretty much whenever I would break as well. I'd draw for maybe an hour or so, and then I'd do it again. And then like lunch breaks, I would just put my arm put my hand in one of those wrist braces. You get them for like $10 at your CVS or Walgreens or whatever, or on Amazon even. Just get one of those braces, preferably one that has like the metal band in it, so that you can't move your wrist at all. And then I would slip, like I have like little ice packs that I would just slip in there just to keep it cool. And I did that for really just a few months. Kept up the stretching, but the icing, I didn't need to do that for too long. Yeah.
I think what is it called? When you have letters that spell out a word, then each of those letters mean something. Anyway, so it's RICE. Acronym, that's it. My brain is not great today. So it's rest, ice, compression, and elevation. Those are the things you can use to drain the blood basically out of the area that's affected and reduce the swelling. You can also use ibuprofen if you're not allergic to it. Both my parents are, so maybe one day I will be. But you have to. I think it's 800 to 1,000 milligrams is the dosage that it takes to deal with inflammation, rather than just be pain relief.
Right.
And at that level, you do need to eat food with it. Otherwise, it will start to mess with the lining of your stomach.
Yeah,
so
it'll hurt.
This isn't medical advice. Talk to your doctor. But that's, generally speaking, it's over the counter. So the doctors I talked to have said it's generally fine as long as you're eating food with it.
Right.
You also mentioned... Go ahead.
You can do that 3 times a day up to. So you can do too much over the course of a day if you do it 4 times, like 6 times or something like that. 4 pills 6 times or whatever. So stick to 800 3 times a day as your max.
You also mentioned posture. Anytime someone, if you're in a room full of people, and somebody like mentions something about like posture, you just like immediately everybody like straightens up.
Yeah.
and everybody that's listening to this, I'm sure, did the same thing. But that's a little bit harder to rehabituate. It's one thing to like get down stretches and stuff, but that like lifting your head and pulling your shoulders back, getting back into that's tough. Like, have you managed to sort of recondition yourself in that way?
Yeah. One thing, I'm still trying to learn some things because it's a little bit frustrating, and you'll understand in a second. So I found that my posture got worse as I allowed myself to fall deeper into the zone. You know what I mean? So like when I'm just like totally spaced out and like just working like solid, just, pure creative flow, that's when my posture just cripples. Just, I'm bending myself in half. I'm this close to the screen. I'm death gripping the pen and I don't even realize it. So, but that's also when I get the most work done. So I've had to kind of stop it's very frustrating because like I like being in the zone, but my body can't take it anymore. Like I don't know if some of you guys remember, but it's probably a few months before my wrist went out, my back was going out. I had what's that called? Um, Dang it, I said it like 5 times on stream, and I was having sciatica symptoms. I think that's what it's called. So it's when a disc in your back is compressing, and you have like essentially the nerve is like poking out, like in between the herniated disc is what it's called. There it is. And when that happens, there's compression on a nerve, and so it's like shooting pain all down one of your legs, and that was horrible. Like I could hardly walk sometimes. Um, so to combat that, obviously, it was getting up and going on walks often, morning and night, just making sure I'm not compressing my back into nothingness. Getting some ab and lower back exercises. Um, but yeah, also not allowing myself to fall too deep into the zone. And so to do that, I'll have a TV show going instead of just music so that I can break my concentration and readjust and then get back to it. Because just pure music, I'll have music from World of Warcraft playing, and I'll just be mentally transported while I'm just working, and I'll get sucked into it, and then my posture just gets worse and worse and worse. So TV shows help break my attention, break my focus, readjust, get back into it. And so that'll usually happen every 10-15 minutes. So it means I work a little bit slower, but I work a lot safer.
Yeah, that break in concentration with a TV show, I've utilized that myself for a long time, and it's I don't know, it's kind of counterintuitive in a way to think that watching a TV show or a movie or something in the background or on a side monitor will actually like help your concentration by also giving you little nudges to not get like too blown out, like you were saying, or there'll be a part in the movie where you're like, oh, I really like this part, and you'll like pause and to like watch that scene in Lord of the Rings or whatever, and like you'll be stretching while you're doing it, or and stuff like that. And it is like but then when you get back into that, you can't still get into the zone, and then the kind of like the drone of the TV show or the movie also helps that, because then I don't know, that when maybe you experience this too, when you're rendering, and it's just you're going through the sort of it's not robotic, but you're just at that point you're just kind of like you're following the formulas, like if you okay, the light is doing this and the color is doing this, and now I just have to like shade this part, and I know what needs to be done. You're not going through like whole new abstract concepts, you're just going through the motions. Having that in the background is great to kind of like break that monotony a little bit. John
Cleese called them the open mode and the closed mode. Open mode is you're open to new ideas. Closed mode is you're closed to new ideas and you just need to get them done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting you bring that up, Joby, because I've had to try to explain that to my teachers growing up forever. It's like, I take the best notes during a lecture when I'm also drawing. Like you can't tell me to not draw, because drawing is my notes. Like, but who's going to understand that? Like, unless you're an artist or are somehow artistically inclined, that's not something that's going to make sense. And you have to have that almost the secondary thing happening to keep the primary focus working. It's really weird.
That's something that all Twitch artists will have in droves if they have any people in chat at all, right? They can have people interrupt their flow just to have more conversation. And then that can also be derailing, but let's not go there. I was going to say, you can also have your channel points set up if you're on Twitch to then have posture check, or Joby has stretch break, and throw in similar things like flip canvas and stuff like that.
One thing that has really done wonders for me, this isn't something, I mean, a lot of people will like kind of roll their eyes when they hear me say it. So I'm not advocating it as like, oh man, ditch the Cintiq. But once I started using a graphics tablet, like I switched away from a Cintiq and I started using, just the flat graphics tablet. For anybody else that gets confused, as I do, always between like which is which, the screen tablet and the graphics tablet, the graphics is the one where you look at the monitor and you're drawing down on the table. I shunned that for a long time. Like, that's just fucking crazy. How does anybody work like that? And then someone sent me a free one, and I was like, all right, I got nothing to lose. I didn't have to pay for it. I'll give this a whirl for a day. And I haven't used my Cintiq since then. And the benefit to my posture and the ergonomics of the way that I hold my body while I'm working is huge. So I mention it in case that registers for anybody else. Again, it's not like an advocation to get rid of the Cintiq and start using graphics tablet. But if that rings a bell for you, yes, give it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't had any issues, and actually, I was talking to Forrest ML briefly, probably almost a year ago. He never had issues until he was working with a Cintiq. And so he promptly stopped working with a Cintiq and went back to his graphic tablet, and those issues went away. So I probably should do the same thing. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I've still been debating it myself.
And there's people that work perfectly fine without it. I just want to really, to Moose's chagrin, I'm repeating myself, but it's worth saying, that it's not like a thing where like, this is going to change your life. You got to do it. Colloidal silver, man. You fucking just start drinking it. It's going to fix everything. But anyway.
Not medical advice.
not medical advice, right? And how is it now? Like you said, you don't even really notice it now, but do you have a maintenance strategy, things that you do to make sure you don't slip back into that?
I'll still stretch, but I don't ice or use a brace anymore. I haven't felt the need to. And yeah, I haven't had any real flare ups. I was feeling it a little bit. Excuse me. Lunch. Okay. I was feeling it a little bit, a couple weeks ago, because I had this really big, intensive project at work that I was drawing, which did include a lot of little details. They wanted a very specific, like old school cross hatching kind of style, so I was very excited about it, obviously. But yeah, we were kind of rushing to meet a deadline, and so I was, working a little extra hard, and my wrist was starting to feel a little warm after that, but nothing too crazy. So I just, stretched it out and called it a day, and it wasn't too bad. So I've been keeping an eye on it, making sure that doesn't happen again. But yeah, really like I mentioned earlier, the frequent breaks, and the distraction of the TV show, so I don't get sucked in too deep, has really, really helped.
So my issue has been that I always forget to do the stretches unless I'm already starting to hurt. At which point, if I'm hurting, and then I do the stretches, it makes it worse for me. Right. So is that an issue for you too, or is this just me being stupid, having to pay for it?
It might be you just being stupid, but no, I'm just kidding. There have been days where I definitely don't stretch. I'll just forget. Something's going on. I just gotta clock out, and I gotta help my wife with the baby. Or we gotta be somewhere, and I won't even think to stretch. But usually right before work, I will at least have a stretch before work. Sometimes after I'll skip it, but yeah.
You said that you're 31.
Yeah.
You're a baby. What would you tell 29-year-old Blake to make sure that this didn't happen? Besides, don't do chainmail or make a chainmail brush.
Just chill the fuck out. Just chill out, man. I'm so bad about getting, really, really worked up. panicky about work, about making sure I have enough to support my family. I mean, that's been all growing up, right? I'm told I always wanted to be an artist, right? I have this. I think I made a Facebook post about it. My mom sent me a box of all this grade school stuff, and there's a picture with like a paragraph of 7-year-old me. What do you want to be when you grow up? And I wrote an artist, and I had like some knights and stuff drawn all over it, right? So I've always, always, always wanted to be an artist, wanted to draw fantasy stuff. And, what does society tell you? Well, you're going to be a starving artist. You're never going to make money. You're not going to, that's a waste of your time. Stop drawing on your math homework. You need to study. You need to study for a STEM degree. That's the only thing that's going to work, right? I'm like, okay, well, no. I was, too stubborn, right? So but then, so living the dream, just kind of casually, just ignoring people. But then once, college happened and then college ended, and especially as I'm getting married, it's like, well, and now it's real. And so that pressure of like, oh, wait, now I actually have to prove everybody wrong. And so that worked me up a lot. A lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of working myself way too hard. And luckily, my wife is extremely patient and understanding and is very supportive. And we've been just fine. We've been just fine. There was never a point where we had to ask for help from anybody or ask for food stamps. Like nothing. We were always okay. We were close a few times, but we were okay.
So, if you don't mind me interjecting,
yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned you're stubborn, and I know that to be true as well. But I can say that I have conversations with you, and you are responsive to them. But would 29-year-old Blake be receptive to the suggestions that you're making now to use like the chainmail brush and to always check your posture and all that stuff? Like, what would it actually take for somebody that's as stubborn as 29-year-old Blake to see the light before they have to go through it themselves?
Oh, man. Unfortunately, I'm one of those guys that needs a wake-up call. Back to talk about college again. Even when I was in college, it didn't really hit me that I was definitely going to have to prove myself that I can make it financially, until I got married. And then I was like, oh crap, like my expenses didn't double, they like tripled. I got to make this work. And then, but even then, I was still like, pretty casual about like, oh, we'll do some conventions, we'll do some freelance, and then I had a baby. And then I'm like, oh gosh, now this is real. Now this is the real proving. I'm like, okay, now I gotta get a real job, and dude, to convince 29-year-old me, like, no way. I mean, it was even just a few weeks ago when I talked, I messing up my gallbladder because too much fast food, right? Like, you tell me, oh, hey, Blake, you should eat healthy and you should exercise. Like, no, it takes a health problem to pop up to get me to do it. It's so stupid. I wish I could just convince 29-year-old me to actually listen to good advice instead of just doing what you want to do until it's too late.
I think that there's a general thought out there that for some people, they're going to just skate on by and not have to worry about it. And that's true until it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no one 100%. No one is exempt. It'll get you. If you think that it won't, then that's an indicator that you need to be all the more careful. There's advice that you will hear sometimes in a lot of YouTube videos, and I don't mind calling them out by name, but FCD from FCD School. And the reason I don't mind calling him out is because he gives a shit ton of great advice, like really, really good advice. But there's one thing that I call him out for, because he's brought it up a couple of times in his videos, and it's in amongst all the good advice. So you might be tempted to like think, oh, well, this is something like I got to take seriously. But he'll talk about, well, these young kids that are working 12 to 15 hours a day, how are you going to keep up with them if you're not working that much? And he'll like push this like crazy work ethic thing that is like super dangerous and unhealthy. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, that's not helping anybody. Like, and if you're at the peak of the industry that is like requiring that, then maybe let's think a little bit differently about what your expectations are.
Dude, yeah. I mean, to that effect, that's what made me not want to work in games at all. Growing up, that's all I wanted to do. I'm like, oh, dude, I want to work in video games. I used to Warcraft 2, right? One of my favorite games as a child. I played the game, yeah, sure. But one of my favorite things to do was when I wasn't allowed to be on the computer, I would look through the Warcraft 2 manual art, and that was my favorite stuff. I'm like, dude, I want to work in games. Little did I know that that's not actually what I wanted to do, because I didn't know what that entailed. And in university and doing research on what this career actually involves, I actually did watch a lot of FCD school stuff, and I'm like, yo, this isn't what I want. These crazy deadlines, the insane pressure, the like you're just at the whim of this big company who they pay too little and expect too much. I'm like, man, this sucks. I don't want this stress. And even worse in movies, right? Freaking movie studios, they'll set up shop, hire you on for 6 months and let you go. It's like, why? This sounds terrible. It's like, if I was just a single guy, maybe I might do it. But no, man, I'm a family man. Like, I wanted a wife and kids, and I have a wife and kids, and so I got to do what's best for them. And moving around the country back when it wasn't as much work from home stuff going on. That just wasn't that was not something I wanted for my family, nor for me, for my stress levels. So I'm pretty high anxiety already. I don't need that kind of a volatile work environment to feeding that.
My understanding is that some game studios are much more cognizant of this issue than others.
Mhm.
So you just have to find the person you're willing to work for. And unfortunately, that may mean moving from studio to studio, but game
Right.
development is never a stable career anyway.
Right.
I was considering moving to the industry a few years ago, and glad I didn't, because everybody I know that has gotten a job there in the industry hasn't spent more like 2 years with the same company.
Yeah.
Whereas been with my company now for the last 11 years. So
that's awesome. That's like unheard of nowadays.
Yeah.
Speaking of stubbornness and work ethic and a few other things that sort of like tie these threads together, and also transitions, I think, serves as a pivot to the next subject that we wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to go back to something that you mentioned earlier. You were doing a character a day. You were doing D&D commissions, and you were cranking out one character design, an illustration of a character per day. And that's quick, man. Like you focused it to a science. And knowing a bit of your history prior to that, and how in love with detail you are, we'll say, and what you were just mentioning about how you can kind of be a little bit stubborn about kind of like learning new things and allowing yourself to transition into like different mindsets. I know your impetus for your inspiration for changing your style up to become more efficient was a monetary thing, but I'm curious, above that, like, what was your process for coming out of this like healthy obsession with detail and line work and fine noodling into this much more efficient but still beautiful style that allowed you to put things out that fast?
Well, honestly, money was the driving factor for that. I knew that, well, especially in the, I don't want to use the word desperate, but kind of. I was desperate to make money and I needed it fast. And I knew that the style that I want to work in um, was not going to make me fast money. At least not with, I mean, I had, very little following. My Twitch channel was still relatively new. Um,
So to
uh,
clarify, the style you wanted to work in was black and white, highly detailed, right?
yeah. For examples, I'm not going to bother pulling them up, but like my deck of cards, right? Or actually this behind me, this right here. Um, that's the kind of stuff that I would work in all the time. That's what I want to work in. Highly detailed black and white stuff. But that that kind of work doesn't make you money until you're a lot more widely known. Um, and yeah, so I had to adapt pretty quickly to get um, more clients quicker. And so basically what I did was I hopped onto um, what is it, a couple of different Reddit channels and just kind of experimented. I'm like, okay, well, if your average kind of D&D character price hovers around $100, what can I do in like 2 hours time? And so I would do experiments like, all right, I'm gonna draw really fast, and then I'm gonna add color really fast, and kind of see it. And I had some really good results and some pretty bad results, and I had to figure some things out and do some more testing, but eventually came up with a process that worked really well between line work, values, and color. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, the motivation there was, purely money. Well, what can I do for how much work can I get done to the quality that I am okay with, while also not shooting myself in the foot? Because I've done that before. I've done really sweet, covers and stuff, illustrations for way too little money because I was stubborn about the detail I wanted to do.
I think it would be good to go into a little bit of the backstory about the commissions that you had set up. So back when you were first starting to do commissions,
Mhm.
you didn't want to do color at all.
Yeah.
And it took me a little bit of convincing of you to even add that into your repertoire.
Mhm.
And I had suggested to you that you try several different price points rather than just one price point per picture.
Mhm.
So that if you wanted to pay you more to do more work, they could, rather than them asking you to do a commission, then you get giving them one price back, which is some people's strategy, and it works for some people, not for others. Um, and so you needed additional price points to come up with. And so, what were the original ones, or which ones did you end up going with that you remember?
Ooh, the original ones. I think I just had I think the drawing was $100. I wasn't doing anything for less than 100. Drawing was 100, and I think I had with shading at like 150, and then color at 200. And I think that's like all I had. Um, I might have had no. I think I also had like a full render kind of thing for like 300 plus. So I did have that kind of thing there, but um, yeah, but even that wasn't enough. I ended up going with a lot more options later.
Or options you
Um,
came up with were higher price tiers,
yeah.
and eventually, as a result, your average commission price started to go up, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, a lot higher. Like if my wait list right now is like mostly 300 plus tier. I think I have several that are over 1,000. Um, one I think is even like 1,500. So yeah, I mean, adding in higher tiers, like even if you think it's ridiculous, like all right, I'll just throw this tier up for $5,000 and somebody will buy it. If they think you're worth it, they'll buy it. But that's the thing. You have to assume that somebody will think you're worth it. I don't think I'm worth it, but other people will, and that's what matters. Um, yeah, but you also have to make sure it's stuff that you want to do, right? because I put myself into some of those tiers where it's like, all right, I want to, I want to learn more. I want to get some more, color, full render. It got to the point where not a single person on my list is asking for black and white character drawings. Not one. Everything is all full render paintings, which is fine because it's more money. But
get commissions though for the game that was all black and white, your old style, right?
Yes. So I have been doing those. I actually just finished up another contract with him today, for some of those. So those have been really nice. But yeah, mostly I'm speaking to majority. I haven't done like a black and white drawn character in a really, really long time.
So how did that make you feel that the community out there didn't want the stuff that you wanted to produce? Like, you wanted to produce the black and white stuff, and they wanted you to start doing color stuff and like fully rendered stuff, as opposed to just more graphical black and white, only black and white, no gray.
Mm-hmm. It's a bummer, but I also know I know there are a lot of artists who work exclusively in black and white and still make it. The problem is I can't afford to be patient. I got a baby, I got a wife, like I gotta make sure everybody's fed, make sure these bills are paid, get out of some debts between, the student load and house and whatever. Like I need money now. And unfortunately, if you want money now, you can't play the long game. You got to play the short game. So to kind of, I started off playing the longer game, right? I had my full-time job as a graphic designer, and while I was doing that, I was working on, my own fantasy world stuff, my deck of cards, my world of OmenShard, all that. But I lost that job, and then, well, nope, need money now. Got to put the long game on hold, and so I've been trying to play catch up ever since.
Commissions weren't the only thing that you considered doing for income, though, and they were the short game. What other things have you considered aside from doing the conventions and working on your IP? Because I know we talked about several of them over the course of your freelance early part.
Oh yeah, man. So many things. Like, we talked a little bit before stream about Skillshare, so tutorial videos and stuff like that. I made a video, I put it up on there, made a little bit of money there. Still have plans to make more, but that was something that I was experimenting with. Stock art was another thing I was experimenting with, taking a lot of my older drawings or even some of my commission pieces and putting them up for sale as stock images on a variety of platforms. That was a pretty cool experiment. Also successful, not like crazy amount, but some little trickle in stuff.
You'll pay for lunch a few days a week, but that's about it.
Yeah. Maybe a couple days a month, but let's see. Oh yeah, I put my brushes on Gumroad. I had a online store for like some extra stuff I have left over from conventions. What else? Yeah, just I had a lot of little ideas. Even things like icons. We talked about icons before too. I was working on some of those for video games. I ended up, not being super interested in it. It was kind of fun, but I ran out of steam pretty quick on those.
Printable minis?
But I think, what's that?
Printable minis?
Oh yeah, that's right. Printable minis. I had made a couple different ones. They were like they worked okay, but I think they were too detailed for print at that scale. So, but anyway, yeah. So I've experimented with a lot of different ideas, and I've liked them all, because after. By the way, all this stuff happened after my experience with losing my job, that graphic design job, because that made me realize, I can't rely on only one source of income, especially as an artist. You just never know what's going to happen. So being able to diversify through Patreon or Twitch or whatever, anything you could do it. You got ideas, just try it out. It doesn't hurt. The only thing you're sacrificing is your time. And even then, even if it ends up not working out, you still learn something and you can apply it to something else. So that's been a really interesting journey. I'm still in that, still trying to find some of those things. It's tough because I like all of them, right? I like having, you know, a t-shirt store on T-Press, because I can get cool clothes for cheap, even if nobody else buys them, I will. um, uh, the deck of cards, the Kickstarter was an awesome experiment into, you know, making interesting products. I absolutely want to do more of that. The Skillshare video um, was a successful test. I definitely want to make more of those. So
What's a
I forget
successful
where I was
test?
going with that.
What
A
is
successful test?
yeah?
If
So what scope are we talking about for income here?
oh the income itself isn't much, but realizing so like for okay, I'll put it blunt. The the single Skillshare video that I made has generated about $1,200 since I released it in November of 2019.
And how many hours of work was it to produce that video and upload it?
I want to say 10 to 12 hours. Nothing
So about
crazy,
100,
right?
so about $100 to $120 an hour is the payout so far.
Yeah, yeah. So, which ain't bad at all. And knowing that if I maximize that, if I was consistent in my original plan of doing one video a week, like that's awesome. That adds up pretty fast. Um, but at the time, the reason I didn't pursue it was one, I wasn't sure I enjoyed making videos, so I've needed to refine that process, figure out a way to enjoy that process. But then two, I needed money right away, so I just went headfirst into nothing but, you know, commissions and nothing else. The stock art is a pretty awesome kind of residual thing. I haven't made a ton of money on that one, like quite a bit less than Skillshare, but it's still cool to see a little extra. It's almost like getting little extra tips, you know. I'll put a piece up on what was it called, Drive Through RPG, and it'll sell, you know, $5 this month, $5 another month. And you know, that's just nice to see. If I went ahead and maximized that, I mean, I have hundreds of pieces of art in my, you know, in my folders on my computer and in my hard drives. I could easily put them all up there and make some extra cash here and there. Sorry, go ahead, Moose.
So we had actually titled this portion of the 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 interview as Art Crises, because I know when we were talking about this when it was happening, it was like a lot of stress and anxiety over choosing which path to go. Do you want to go into that a little bit? Like, how did you work your way through it and choose which avenues to go down, which ones to avoid?
Oh man, yeah. So the crisis kind of happened. I mentioned it a little bit earlier when, you know, going through school, realizing that my plans needed to change because I wanted to get into game design, and then my portfolio was not up to snuff with that, nor was that a career path I really wanted to take, it turns out. And then I got married, like, oh crap, gotta make some money. And I think that the most important decision that I made, remember, I am very stubborn, but I was even more stubborn about taking care of my family, right? Making sure that I can be a provider. So I was willing to take whatever art job I can get as long as it was within art, right? So I got a job in graphic design, even though it had nothing to, I had never even taken a graphic design class. I didn't know what I was doing. I had used Illustrator only a couple of times, and yet I put in the hours and practice and made sure that I could do what was expected of me. And I was able to do it pretty quick, which is nice. So yeah, so making myself open to, you know, if I had been like, all right, no, I'm gonna stick with game design and I'm only gonna do this kind of art, and like I wouldn't have a job still. Being able to choose something else, knowing, all right, I have art skills, this is tangential, I could figure it out, was probably one of the best decisions I made, so that I could get into graphic design. Sorry, excuse me. Allergies. And then after I lost that job, it was like, oh crap, you know, the next thing, the next bit of desperation. Well, now Now we have no money. And so then I'm like, all right, what can I do with this? I had already started my Twitch stream. And I had like started doing conventions a little bit. So then I'm like, well, okay, we have like 2 months to figure this out before I have to go work at McDonald's. So let's make this work. And so we did. Gung ho into pushing products. I pushed my Kickstarter, pushed Twitch as much as I could, freelance and online sales, and and it was starting to work. That desperation really helped. It was a very scary path. There are some things I would do differently now that I know some things. And mostly that doing things differently would be being more prepared, like a little bit of financial backing before jumping into freelance, or a little bit of cushion before dabbling into conventions, because that stuff is expensive and pretty high risk. So I think I was really lucky jumping in the way I did. But then, yeah, so then, but even with freelance, it wasn't quite enough, especially once I had a child. You have to, well, okay, back up a little bit. So in freelance, money comes and goes, right? I would make 10 grand one month and then $100 the next month. And I couldn't handle that kind of stress, right? It's just too swingy. I did not like that at all. We could get by, and it wasn't terrible until I had a child, and I'm like, okay, now I have to be more, I got to be more consistent than that. So I ended up switching gears again and going for a full-time job. And it's more like children's illustration type stuff. So again, kind of a sidestep from what I'm actually doing. It's art relative. It's still illustration, but in a very different style again. So I would say generally being malleable. I've seen that word a few times in chat, and I like it. Having a malleable skill is so essential to being successful. Especially if you don't have that that backing beforehand. Like some artists can really just stick to one style, and they just they hammer it and they mark it, and they and I have mad respect for that, right? But even then, that takes a lot of time. Like folks like like Peter Morbacher, he has a very distinguishable style. He will refuse your money if you ask him to do something different, right? He's like no, I do one thing, and that is my thing. But it also took him a very long time to get there, right? He has this long time career before he's gotten to where he's been the last 10 years or so. And really, I'm just starting, right? I graduated college 2017. There's only been a few years. So having to be malleable is absolutely essential when you're first starting out and making things work. I think I lost my train of thought a little bit there.
That's right. I can re-relay real quick with a different question. So while you were doing commissions, you weren't just drawing them. You also had to be seeking clients. How stressful was that? And what role did that have in your choosing to get away from commissions?
That was the worst part. I felt like I could never clock out. It was wake up in the morning, make a post, and answer comments, messages. And it wasn't make a post; it was make a post on Facebook, on Twitter, on Patreon, on Discord, on everywhere that you could, Reddit, multiple forums on Reddit, right? And then answer any and all messages and comments that come in. Because if you don't, that's potentially a client that was warming up to buying something and then they don't. But if you answer, especially right away, that's that establishes a better potential relationship with that potential client. So I had that in my head. I'm like, oh gosh, I can never clock out. So I'm constantly on my phone, constantly answering emails. It was too much. And on top of the regular 6 to 10 hour workday where I'm drawing on Twitch, and then I would go to bed looking at my phone, answering more messages, getting ready for tomorrow's posts. It was it was way too much, man. I freaking hated it. But what also sucked is that whenever I would take a break from doing that, like, oh, I'm just not going to post today or tomorrow or the next day, even only 3 days of not posting, those 3 days I would get no clients. Like the constant activity was there was a direct result. And so that was like mentally just, oh, it sucked so bad. So having this regular job, while it's not what I want, to do specifically, I am so much happier because I'm able to just clock out. It's like, nope, I'm not answering that email till Monday. Nope, my workday ends at 5 p.m. I don't have to continue my workday. I don't have to, messages. I mean, if you guys have noticed, I haven't made an Instagram post since like freaking February, which isn't great for the algorithm, obviously. But at the same time, I don't need the algorithm right now. So it's nice mentally to not have to deal with that, because it's a lot. And some people handle it a lot better than others. Some people really love social media, but I never liked social media to begin with. So it was a fight the whole time.
So the funny thing is, I looked at your backlog of work, and there's a huge number of people that are still waiting for work from you. We'll get to that later. But when you switched over from freelance entirely to having a full-time job and then choosing to work on those commissions in your free time, quote-unquote free time, that was because you thought you weren't getting enough clients. But you had, 40, 50 clients in waiting at the time that you thought you weren't getting enough clients as regularly as you wanted. So where's the disconnect there, that you have tons of clients but you feel like you're not getting enough?
The problem was, well, it was okay. It was, almost all of those clients are prepaid in full. And a little bit before my baby was born, a lot of those clients have been waiting since last summer. Okay. So here's what happened. End of last summer, end of August, my wife is very pregnant and gets rear-ended, car accident, totaled the car. I had to take her to the hospital. Luckily, everything was fine. But that event right there, obviously, I stopped working for a while. That event happened, and then a couple months later, my baby was born, and so yeah, not a lot of work done in that time at all. So I had like stopped advertising. I wasn't streaming nearly as often. Work was getting done at a much slower rate because I'm, especially between August and October, like, baby's coming, like I'm freaking, like I can't focus on work. I was really struggling there. So, excuse me. And then once the baby was born, there's no time for, there's not a lot of work that can get done. Helping with the baby and everything, helping get other things done. So yeah, work just slowed to a crawl. But if I'm not working, I'm not advertising, I'm not streaming, the income stopped. So not only is the work not getting done, the income is not coming in either, because I'm not advertising anymore. So then come December time, I'm like, dude, I got to think of something else, because this is too, if things can throw, sorry, I'm losing my wording here. But yeah, I mean, that alone, put me in a spin of not, needing income and needing something more regular. The instability of the freelance system that I had set up. This isn't freelance generally, because it works a lot better for other people, but in the system that I had, it was way too volatile to be sustainable.
Let's talk for just a little bit about what you just said, that it could be set up differently. Other people set it up differently where it is more sustainable, because this is something that you hear, well, people get into freelance because you can make your own hours and you're keeping all of the money instead of, just getting a paycheck from the company or whatever. But there is this give and take. Like, when people are really enjoying freelance, what does it look like when people are doing it well and feel like it's like really working for them? And what would your thoughts be like if you had to do it all over again, or if you were going to do it differently in the future? How would things be different?
It's very difficult to compare compare what I did for freelance as opposed to other people, because I don't know their situation. All I know is like their social medias, and that has a different perspective, very outside looking in kind of thing. But for me specifically, like I really loved the work that I did. I really enjoyed making, bringing other people's characters to life. You have a character that you've played for years, so many good experiences, and you want to get that character illustrated, and and those people came to me to get that character illustrated. That's a really cool feeling, right? And then drawing that character, painting that character, and showing it to them, or doing it live and talking about it, interacting with the client, like those are so fun, right? I loved every second of that kind of stuff. But it was the advertising, man. That was the soul sucking part that I never want to do again. um I hate reaching out to, I mean, this is another reason why I've never reached out to like Wizards or even like Blizzard officially, because like I don't know, I don't like it. I don't like trying to sell myself. It's not something I enjoy doing. And so in a perfect world, uh I would just get emails, yo, I want this character done. And I wouldn't have to be posting every day and all this stuff, right? In fact, if I could just stream every day and get my clients through Twitch, I would do that. That's the only kind of advertising I actually have fun doing. Um, but even then, I think beyond freelance, like if I was going to do freelance forever, that's how I would want to do it. Just on stream, 8 hours a day, and just get all my clients through Twitch, nowhere else. I'd be cool with that. But ideally, I would just be building my own fantasy world on Twitch and nothing else.
Do you feel like you're still building up to that point? Is that still part of the long term?
Yes. It is a long-term plan. But I need to get some more of that passive income happening though. And so that involves, digging deeper into those other things I talked about, like the Skillshare videos, some more of that stock art selling, maybe, just kind of get some more of those things going a little more frequently, because I haven't. Sorry, you probably hear my baby in the background. Just get some more of those things going, so that I don't need that regular 9 to 5 income. But obviously that's a long term thing, because that's not something that can happen overnight, or even a few months, or even a year of work. So we'll see.
So when you first started your full-time employment job with the education stuff,
Mhm.
You had I remember you having the plan to do that during the day and then work on commissions at night, as you had when you were doing the graphic design. What's different between what you're doing at the graphic design job to what you're doing now that allows you to do it so much more frequently at night? The commission work so much more frequently at night than you are now.
Well, it's because the graphic design job was a extremely low effort job. I mean, almost to the point of mindless. It was so easy. I It didn't take like any creative energy. You know, it was just basically I was basically copy pasting logos onto cars. That's how mindless it was, and it was logos that were usually already made, so there wasn't even any designing. It was, you know, format this logo to fit on a large scale print and get it ready for print on a giant printer. That was it. Um, so so all of that creative energy was kept in reserve for nighttime when I could stream and do the real work. Now my creative energy is absolutely exhausted because I'm now coming up with compositions and illustrations and you know, doing a lot of detail. This company really likes heavily detailed work, which is part of the reason why they hired me. They liked my my detail oriented skills. They liked that I could draw people pretty well. Um, and they liked an old school kind of pen and ink style. So I'm like, wow, perfect. I've ticked all these marks. This is perfect. Um, but that kind of work is demanding. It takes a lot mentally and physically to do that kind of work for 8 hours a day. So, uh,
8
so
hours?
yeah,
Like a full work day for an artist? That sounds like people in chat can maybe uh, say if this is normal or not. But I thought that like when someone was actually an artist working for a company, they didn't actually work the full 8 hours because the company knew that that wasn't actually possible for an artist to do all day.
it's a little different when you well okay when you well I guess it depends on the company too, because this company requires logged hours. You have to write down what you know sorry, she is very I have
And
my
don't
door
worry.
closed and she's not crying or anything. She's just having fun.
Yeah,
I think
don't
it's
worry
louder
about
for
it. It
you than
doesn't
it is
come
for
through
us.
too loud.
Okay, that's good. Um, sorry, she's so funny. Very distracting. Um, yeah, so I have to do a log of what I do each hour, and if illustrations are taking too long, according to them, um, then I can potentially get in trouble. It's like, okay, well, you know, this is taking too long. We need you either working on something else, or we need to cut the product, or you know, and me having the experience I had with my other job, um, the last thing I want to do is risk this job. Um, so yeah, so I end up, you know, putting in quite a bit. Although I'll push a little bit, right? Um, I will include like, you know, thinking time, like not physical drawing time, but also thinking time, because I do a lot of that into my work. So say an illustration takes, you know, 5 hours physical drawing time. Probably one or two of those will be, you know, thinking and ideation before I actually get down into the nit and grit of it. So there is a little bit of push and pull, like actual 8 hours physical drawing. You know, good luck. You'll have that job for maybe a year before your hand falls off. Um, so yeah.
So, how is it working out for you in terms of making the time to finish your backlog of commissions? Because I remember you saying once you have, you're not pushing new commissions, and once you have your current list sort of worked through, then you'll be devoting the spare energy that you do have to OmenShard, building OmenShard.
Mm-hmm.
So faced with this conundrum of kind of having to expend so much creative energy on your main job, how do you balance that? How do you navigate that? Do you have like a means for finding new energy, or reserving time, or reserving energy? How does that work?
I'm still working on that, to be honest. As my followers know, I don't stream nearly as often. Sometimes less than once a week, and that can be frustrating for me. Hopefully not for my viewers, but it's yeah, it's very difficult because at the end of a full workday, you know, my wife has had the baby all day while I've been in my office. And so she needs a break, and we'll tag team it. I'll feed the baby while she makes dinner, or vice versa, or whatever. But then I also need to spend time with them. And then after that, when it's like 8, 9 o'clock at night, sometimes it's really difficult to be like, okay, let's work again. After wake up at 8, get in the desk by 9, work all day till 5 or 6 p.m., whatever. Help with baby, uh, hang out, with the wife for an hour or two, and put the baby to bed. And it's really hard to want to clock back in again, essentially. And even if I do have the time, it's that energy is oftentimes spent. But sometimes I'll push through. I'll put up the stream, or sometimes I won't stream. Sometimes I'll still get some work done, but it'll be off stream, because that streaming does take a little bit of extra energy too. You got to be at least alert enough to respond to comments, and to not just be a vegetable sitting in a chair drawing. But sometimes I need to be a vegetable and just get work done off stream. So there's been times where I've done that as well. But it's really difficult. The commission list hasn't moved in a long time. I haven't made a lot of progress on the fantasy art, or on the D&D character list anyway. I had some other stuff for board games and card games, some stuff that I had signed contracts with a while back, so I had to put those first before the D&D characters, so that's kind of pushed some things back as well. It's tough, man, realizing that there really only are 24 hours in a day, and unfortunately you need some of those to sleep and eat. Is kind of frustrating.
Yeah, until they find the side effect free meth alternative, we're kind of just screwed. And it might be the long term, or the long game effect that you spoke of before, might be that that might just be the grind for a while, until the kids become more self-sufficient. I'm kind of finding that in my own life as my son gets older. Slightly less demanding in different ways, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe slightly less physically intensive kind of demanding. And then you get to a point where things do kind of open up a little bit, and and for you, that's I hate to sound annoying, but you're still so young, Blake. You have so much time, so it's I'm only going through this to sort of highlight the point that it's, I know for me, I suffer from this too. It has to happen yesterday, and if it's not already, then it's never going to happen, and all of my hopes and dreams are going out the window. But patience is an important part of this, because there will be time again. Just kind of keeping the grind in mind.
It's in my heart of hearts, right? I want as much time for my family as possible. My home life growing up, both of my parents worked a lot, and so I hardly saw my parents really, or if I did, it was because I was brought to work. And I sat in their office all day, right? Or or I would wait in the car for hours, right? It was not a very fun lifestyle to have as a kid. Where your parents are just constantly always at work. And so it's been kind of a heart of hearts goal to try and be free of that, in a sense, to try and establish a lifestyle where I don't have to work, nearly as much. And I can devote that time to my family, to my children. But of course, that's a very difficult thing to do, so I'm hoping that I can establish these passive income streams, so that I can work on what I want, or work on projects with my wife. My wife is an author, And we've been wanting to do like a comic or something together for a really long time, and it's just it's not going to happen for a while, but that's okay. But yeah, there are things that I want to do, and yeah, I'm impatient. I'm stubborn. I want what I want, and I want it now. But yeah, it'll happen. As long as I keep my eye on the prize, so to speak, and make sure I'm maybe sacrificing an hour or two of sleep to get in that extra little bit of work to eventually get that thing that I want.
So with your IP, for a long time it was focused on orcs, in addition to the djinn that, for example, the one that's behind you. And you had been going through a little bit of, I guess, your own art crisis in regard to the subject matter of the IP. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sorry, say that one more time. I looked at chat and I shouldn't have.
It's fine. So you, at the time, it was mostly focused on orcs, and you were doing illustrations involving orcs and trying to sell those at conventions. Can you talk about like what kind of mental, I don't want to say trauma, but that's probably too extreme, stress you were put through in regard to the subject matter of what you wanted to do versus what other people want you to do?
Well, what's really interesting is it might be surprising, but the djinn actually came first. Well, no. The djinn didn't come first. Originally, OmenShard came from, it was a project in school. I was doing like a kind of a D&D party of sorts. In fact, some of the characters were based off of some D&D characters that me and my friends played together. But then it evolved into I was doing like some mythology exploration with a friend of mine. We were thinking of doing like some creature compendium book or whatever, and we're like, oh, let's do the desert, right? And so I started digging into some desert mythology and came across djinn stuff, and I was so fascinated by it, I just started drawing and painting them, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna put this in OmenShard, right? But then I circled back around again to some more mythology, and then just was thinking more about orcs. So I've always been into orcs. And so I'm like, I'm gonna put orcs into OmenShard somehow. And so I just started writing some stuff and drawing some stuff and putting them in there. So really, it's been an evolution the whole time. But orcs are my first love, and they always will be. But it's not necessarily how OmenShard started. So they will be a prominent aspect. But yeah, back to what you were saying, orcs aren't super popular, especially for wall art, right? They're fun to play. I know a lot of people who play as orcs, but yeah, for print sales especially, orcs don't do that well. So yeah, thinking about other races, you got to have elves, because I guess everybody loves elves for some reason. um, but yeah, so I've been thinking about a lot of stuff, add to the world, make it more interesting. But even taking some of those stereotypical things like elves and making them a little more unique, or things like the dwarfs. Making them shorter, getting rid of their nose, just little funny things to make these characters more interesting. Um, has been really fun. It's been a lot to explore. I'm still going back and forth on whether or not I want to include color at all, because all my djinn paintings are in color, but all my orcs are in black and white. So yeah, so I'm kind of still deciding if I even need to pick a direction and just kind of mix it. Some stuff can be painted, some stuff can be drawn. It doesn't really matter. I mean, Frank Frazetta did both painting and ink art, so I could do that too. Yeah, but I've also thought about a lot of different mediums. I thought about even writing a novel, um, doing a comic, doing. I keep going back and forth on doing like really super illustrated, really nice comic where I do like one page a month, kind of things, um, or or even one panel a month, like insanely detailed panels, or just do a super quick, real easy, fast, simple style comic. um or getting more into decks of cards or more prints. There's like I've thought about everything, and I'm not dismissing anything either. So really, I want to do it all.
We have a bonus question from Cami in chat. They demand to know what your favorite orc type is, or what the origin is. Like Lord of the Rings, WoW, 40k. What do you think?
That is a very difficult question to answer. Because, oh my gosh, that's so tough. So,
not supposed to be that deep. It's level question. Be superficial.
Dude, no, this is a very deep question, and
you didn't know what you were asking.
I know this is a deep question, right? All right, I guess I'll just give a quick answer. If you want a deep answer, I'll be streaming tomorrow, and we'll talk about it then. Quick answer: I really like World of Warcraft orcs a lot, but I like all orcs except for D&D orcs. I think D&D orcs are they shouldn't be. They're almost zombie-like, and I don't like that. I think that's stupid. But anyway, if you want to talk orcs, we can talk orcs.
And he will for like hours on end. It's his favorite topic.
I have, yes.
I would actually like to talk orcs a little bit more, because I think that there is a relevancy here. You mentioned orcs not being as popular, but I'm wondering two things. What is the market that you have in mind when you are thinking that? And why not? I guess let me put it a little bit more forward and be a little bit more challenging. Are you sure that you're trying to pitch your orcs to the right people when you're thinking that they're not that popular?
Oh yeah. See, when I say a thing is not that popular, I'm more talking to like my general sphere, right? If you look at stats, I've done this too. Look at stats on the races that people choose to play in World of Warcraft. It's actually a very small percentage of players that play orcs. The vast majority, even amongst just the Horde faction, it's like I think it's like 60-something% are blood elves. Everybody loves elves, man. And the orcs are a very small percentage. And that's just amongst World of Warcraft players. But also you look at things like conventions. That's another metric I kind of think about. As far as prints that sell, my orcs are the least selling prints. The ones that sell the most are actually, this one right here. That print sells way more. So attractive female who looks badass, right? So that will, objectively sell more than any of my fantasy orc stuff has. But there is always a market for everything. So while my small, sphere of influence has only sold this much, if my sphere of influence was much bigger, obviously it wouldn't be a problem.
Bigger or pointed in a different direction. And this isn't like, I'm not trying to be argumentative, just for like, not just because I disagree with you.
Because we have 30 minutes to fill.
No, it's that I'm thinking that I know that there's a demand for, like darker, like more ominous kind of art. There's genres that do very well in that regard, and it's not like your art is necessarily like horror genre or gruesome, but it's not that you necessarily have to sell to people that are into like the more kind of like lighter end power chicks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's finding that target audience that's very difficult. Now, I'm not sure about a higher demand for darker art, but that might just be That might just be what I see. You go on any general social media like Instagram or whatever, or even take a walk through a convention hall, right? There's always a crowd around the more generic pretty stuff. Um, as opposed to the darker fantasy art. Or if there are lots of fans of darker fantasy art, how often are they buying prints to hang up on their wall? Because oftentimes the husband or wife that really likes the dark fantasy art, they're not going to buy a print and put it on their wall because their significant other says like, no, we can't put that in the kitchen. You know, that's actually arguments that I've heard. I'm sitting on my side of the table and a couple is on the other side, and the husband's like, oh, this is so badass, man, dude, give me 5 of those, give me. And the wife's like, where are you gonna put it? Like, you can't, you're not putting that on the wall. Like, oh, well, I'll put it in my office. No, you're putting that in a drawer. Like, you can't. And that was all the friggin' time. Again, that's a very specific situation, but that occurred a lot and kind of made me realize, oh, maybe it made me think about the success of, again, I bring up Peter Morbacher. His art in generally is the subject matter can be kind of dark, but the images are very beautiful, right? Very aesthetically pleasing. You could hang those up and it wouldn't be weird. But you hang up like here, you hang up, friggin' Moligar the Barbarian over there, and your neighbors when they come over for dinner are going to have some questions. So
maybe I would want to clarify one thing. I didn't mean to imply that darker art it has a higher popularity than other genres or whatever. If I gave that impression, I wasn't trying to say that. And in terms of like broad sweeping generalities, like as far as like what has like broader mainstream appeal, I wouldn't argue that it's elves and pretty. I don't know if that would be like PC to say, but like pretty art. But it's that like I'm either by maybe it's just sheer intuition, or like that my limited observation is saying something true, that the market must be there. Like
absolutely.
I'm thinking of like a number of artists, some whose names I can't specifically grab onto exactly, but like I know that I've seen, and you have too, lots of art that is like not gruesome or just like, but like definitely on the darker, heavier, more moody end,
Maybe Andrew Moore or something.
Oh yeah. Andrew Marr's pretty good. I mean, he still kind of floats along the pretty, like he draws a lot of demon girls and stuff like that. But yeah, absolutely. I'm not discounting your point, Joby, at all. Like it's, you're absolutely right. There is a market there, but it's hard to find. Well, like what I said about a long game versus short game, right? If you want to play short game, you kind of got to be a little more generalist, a little more pretty. You got to add color to your art, right? But long game, there will be success. So that's kind of been just my, like, I'm not saying one is better than the other, because that isn't true. Obviously, there's a market for everything. But speaking really only to my experience, the black and white stuff does not make short-term quick money. Color, pretty stuff does. Now, long game, I won't have a problem, but short game, it is a problem, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And, again, it's not to be like, you're wrong, Blake, you're doing it wrong. It's that I know how much you love the stuff that you love. And I love it too. And, and part of how much other people enjoy it has to do with the passion that you have for it, and you can tell when you see the art, or when you're talking about it and hearing the stories behind it, like how much passion and love that you have for it is infectious. And I want people to find it. I want people to see it. So it's my way of being like, come on, Blake, let's see more of it, man. Like, keep putting it out there, keep making it.
Let's
Thank
turn
you.
OmenShard into an STD. All the past.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, dude. Yeah, trust me. I want to be. Right now, it's a factor of time, and
Sure.
not having any. Now, I've been talking with my wife a lot about making plans to make sure that I do get working on OmenShard, hopefully by the end of the year again, because there's so much I want to do, so much we want to do with it. I can't I can't not do it, right? It's the black and white art is the art that I absolutely love to do, so it's a crime to not do it. um and I mean, a lot of people even know me as a black and white artist, even though I haven't done exclusively black and white art in a long time, so I know that there's something there. It's just a matter of uh getting and making the time to harness that. So I absolutely will. Don't get me wrong.
I think it would be fun. We've talked a lot about OmenShard, but we haven't covered exactly what it is. I think it would be fun for you to talk a little bit about.
Oh, hell yeah.
What is the world of OmenShard anyway? What is all of this that we've been talking about?
So, sorry, I'm seeing if I can grab my art book here. So, OmenShard is a fantasy world that I started developing in college. Oh, nope, that's not my book. Okay, I can't find it. Oh well. Yeah, it's a fantasy universe that I started developing. I love fantasy art, but well, really, it started with a love of old school video gaming. A lot of games that I played were kind of darker and grittier. Um, for example, I really liked Diablo and Diablo 2, those Blizzard titles, and then Warcraft 1 and Warcraft 2. Now, those were a little bit darker, a little bit grittier, and I really loved them. Um, the Yeah, they were just they had a, I don't know, those games kind of instilled a um what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of a mood, a feeling that I almost associate with the fantasy art that I like the most. Um, I just love it. I don't know. And then when I saw Blizzard deviate from those styles and go a little more cartoony, more stylized, like with Warcraft 3 and Diablo 3, it kind of turned me off quite a bit, actually. Like I still enjoy it, but it's not the kind of art that, like, I'll still make some art that looks like that. But I don't know. It's not the same feeling that I get from an old school, dark, gritty kind of fantasy. Um, and So I wanted to, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? I wanted to I want okay. I wanted to play or create or feel the thing that I want. Does that make sense? Like,
Oh yeah.
I wanted Diablo 2 again, right? Sort of thing. Yeah, I want that same kind of nostalgic feeling with something that I make. Um what's the thing? Be the thing you want to see in the world, or whatever. I'm looking for that phrase kind of thing. Um so I started creating this fantasy universe. um and it just, I don't know, it just kind of snowballed into a really fun kind of thing, and I wasn't too specific about it either. Like, I have kind of a general story, a general fantasy universe. Um I got creatures from all over the place. I really enjoy history and mythology. um and so I like to, get inspiration from those things, especially from historical settings. I find that stuff really, really fascinating. Um, and Yeah, I don't know. It's just a place where I can put a lot of my creative energy, and it's very fulfilling. Even if I don't get to work on it very often, I'll just like flip through my playing cards and be like, oh hell yeah, it's just fun, man. It feels real good. So I want to keep developing it. There's a lot of stories that I want to tell with it. There's um, a lot of pieces of art that I have in my head that I really want to get out there. I want to make more playing cards. Like that first deck was so fun to make. I want to do more.
Talk a little bit
It's
about
just really fun.
Talk a little bit about
Are there any other
itself. Sorry. Did you catch that?
Oh no, it's all right. The world itself. Well, that's the thing. I kind of did, because there's not a whole lot set in stone with the fantasy world.
Okay, fair.
Right now, there's just some kind of well, here. Let me grab my website real quick. So on blakedart.com, there's a little art and lore section. Let's see if there's anything. Yeah, it's pretty generic at the moment. I haven't fleshed out a whole lot about it, other than the orcs and the djinns. They're pretty much the only thing that are fleshed out pretty decently. I do have a map that I made, which is pretty cool. I'm proud of that.
You're understating it a little bit, man. Like that, just in the orcs themselves, you have so much lore and storytelling for the orcs. You don't have to give us the entire history, but I'm like, come on, man, you got juice in there.
Mostly I'm trying to remember it. I haven't had a lot of time to think about it very much, you know.
No, that's fair. You've been kind of out of the running with it for a little bit, so yeah, I hear that.
I have, yeah.
So there's the Clubs clan, there's the Heart clan, there's the Spade clan, and there's the Diamond clan.
They do have names. I just can't remember them at the moment. But yeah, so these. Let's see if I'm remembering right. So I also trying to see if I want to go too general or specific, because generally the world is very vast. Like there's several continents with many cultures on each of them. Again, not fleshed out. I just have like general, very vague ideas that are loosely rooted in history and mythology. But the orcs that I've established are like kind of Northern European based, some a little bit Irish, some a little more Norwegian, the ancient Norse kind of look, and drawing on some of the mythology there in who they are and what they do. What was I gonna say? But yeah, again, sorry, I can't really be general because I don't remember a lot. But yeah, just drawing on a lot of different mythologies and ideas, and it's fun. Sorry, I'm not sure what else to say about it.
No, that's fine. When you have more steam on it, when it gets going as more of a priority focus for you, we'll have you back on to recapitulate all of this information, because it is cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but as you are kind of looking forward, you've kind of mentioned a little bit of products and ideas that you want to do in the future. You've done playing cards already. What are some other ideas that you have for products that you could make that would be associated with it? And how do you kind of juxtapose the products that you want to make with, what's going to be actually like true to the IP and make sense for it?
So, it started with prints, just paper prints. But I didn't really find a whole lot of success in that, because a lot of my illustrations are, they seem to fit as like book interiors a lot better than they do as wall prints. So wall art kind of has a general feeling, and interior art is kind of more specific. So a lot of my art kind of had that more interior art feel. So I started putting it on more stuff. Like I did a art and lore book. It's and that actually sold pretty fast. I keep thinking I should print more, but the printer that I worked with no longer exists, unfortunately, and I've been just slow to make more. But But then I started branching out to other products like desk mats, like play mats, and those actually sold really well. I liked working with those. The playing cards were really, really fun. That was a spur of the moment kind of an idea that just worked so well, and I wanted to do more. As far as other products go, I had thought about doing things like D&D supplements, use some of those stories and turn them into, part of the game. People can like play through my story essentially. Um, I've thought about comics for a long time. That was the original intent of OmenShard, was to make a comic. But then I actually have 2 issues written and thumbnailed. But then when I went to illustrate them, I realized that I didn't know what anything looked like. Nothing. I had no details, no visual cues. I didn't have the world built. I'm like, how can I illustrate this? And so I set those aside and decided, all right, I'm going to build the world, before I finish this. And, that in itself is a massive undertaking. So I'm thinking about going, back into the comic now that I have some of that stuff established, at least with the characters and kind of the overall feel of the world. I don't have to have every question answered because that's impossible, but now I can start getting into the comic. So that's something I absolutely want to do. I even thought, my wife has been writing several novels. She's funny. She jumps between like 4 or 5 novels that she's been writing for years, but her writing has made me want to write one as well. She says I'm a pretty good writer, and so I'm like, well, maybe I'll give it a shot and see what happens. So that's probably in the far distant future. Maybe when I can't draw anymore, then I'll start writing instead or something. I don't know. And gosh, other products. There's something else I had in mind. I forgot now, but
body pillows, so you can hug the orc while you sleep.
Body pillow. Hell yeah,
that's actually a legit idea,
dude. I know, not bad. T-shirts. Actually, I found myself having a lot of fun taking my illustrations and turning into T-shirts. They end up looking kind of like band shirts, like heavy metal T-shirts, and I freaking love them.
That's one of the crowds that keeps popping up in my mind when we're talking about markets for your artwork. Like the metal
just
crowd.
Get Iron Maiden to have you do a cover for them, and you're set.
Dude, there we go. Right, I would happily draw Eddie for them. That'd be so fun. Yeah, dude. I forgot where I was going, but yeah, man. There's all sorts of stuff I want to do. I'm not like against any idea. I want to try everything because you never know what's going to stick, what's going to do well. And even if it doesn't do well, it's still fun. Like my online T-shirt shop doesn't sell a lot. I've only sold a handful of shirts, but I buy them for myself. I'll wear my own merch. I don't care.
Yeah, okay, no shame in that.
I think the key is finding functional uses for the art rather than just putting it on the wall.
Yeah.
So you mentioned mouse pads and desk mats, and mouse pads are smaller, the smallest version. Play mats are slightly wider, and then desk mats are like wider than the keyboard, so they just put them there. Jay Axer in chat mentioned coasters actually did well as well for him.
Ooh.
So those are even smaller.
I was curious. I was curious about that. Yeah, the coasters for people's houses. I assume that he meant, but then that also made me think like maybe if you had a bunch printed as kind of like promotional material, and you like gave them to bars.
Honestly, I actually have a bar right around the corner here that's like they play metal music all the time.
I was just gonna say there's definitely like bars where like metalheads and people, old crust punks are gonna hang out more than
old crust punks.
That's their word, not mine.
So it's square format though. So maybe you could use the busts of orcs that you had drawn over the years and put them together and just slice out little pieces and then have those be the coasters.
Dude, hell yeah. Yeah, that's not a bad idea at all. Yeah, that's good.
Oh, for those that are hard to wear, for a long time, well, I guess for a few months at least, Blake had a reward for people who subscribed to him, where he would do a quick like 1 to 5 minute bust, a face of an orc, and then just put that into a collage. So now he has this document that he hasn't done anything with, but he's put like hours work into over the course of so many months. So now that if he can find a purpose for that again, like maybe whether it's individual coasters or some kind of weird banner for OmenShard, like the faces of OmenShard, it's you, because most of the people that did the OmenShard things had themselves put into it. There's a Joby OmenShard. I guess he's over that way.
Yeah, I made it into
and Joby didn't really care
the
for his
emote
version.
list. I love to that I ended up as the sad face one. That's perfect.
It just worked so well.
Right.
Yeah, I had actually been, along those lines. I think the idea was instilled into me from the old podcast we would watch about like maximizing your art, right? You spend all this time doing a piece of art. Why would you just save it only for prints? Like, if you can make money with that same piece of art on a print, on a t-shirt, in a book, as icons, as stock art, as then you're making so much more for the time that you spent on it. And so I've been thinking a lot about how different ways to do that. Unfortunately, I haven't had time to explore all of those different options, but yeah, it's something that I think about a lot. I mean, there's no reason not to. You own the rights to the art, so make the most of it. I mean, a company's going to do that, right? You do a piece for Magic, and they're going to use that art on cards, on promo materials, on advertising, on the box, on So like, why aren't we doing the same?
Yeah, absolutely. Stacking functions.
Because you're not Magic the Gathering.
But I can be.
One day.
One day.
Well, coming into a wrap up, I wanted to bounce way back really quick, a follow up question. I don't know if they're still in the chat, but somebody had asked a little bit about Patreon. You mentioned it, and they were wondering if you still maintained a Patreon or if you have plans for that. What does that look like?
My Patreon currently is really stagnant. I would say don't subscribe to it right now because I haven't had any time. I do have plans for it in the future. It's going to be where I'm going to be developing OmenShard. But as it stands right now, I'm so backed up with freelance. I'm not even touching it until probably the earliest January 2022. So stop by then, and I'm going to have some cool stuff going on. But until then, you follow it, but don't give me money for it because it's not going to get any updates.
Unless you want to support him for whatever reason.
Unless you want to be a very, very kind and generous soul, which I would very much appreciate. That'd be amazing. Yeah.
And as you should.
Eventually we'll get there.
Yeah, the links to all of those will be in the show notes as well. So definitely go check that out. And Moose, did you have any follow-up questions?
So you said you're going to be streaming tomorrow night, and that would be the 7th for the people who are listening on delay?
Yeah, I'll be streaming tomorrow, June 7th. I'll be on around 8 or 9 p.m., depending on when my baby goes to sleep. But yeah, we're going to be wrapping up a painting I've been working on for a client for like the last month. Finally, we'll be scratching that one off the list. I'm pretty excited to get that done and hang out with you guys, and we'll be sure to talk a lot about orcs.
Speaking of which, Cammy was saddened that she missed the bus for the orc busts. So would you be willing to do one more for her if she shows up tomorrow?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll do that. I haven't done them in a long time. It was for a while. I was just so focused on getting client work done that subs interrupting my flow of work. It got to the point where I'm like, I can't. Now I'm not getting any work done, but I still enjoy doing them. But absolutely, I'll do one for you tomorrow.
What time zone did you say?
It's either 7 or what did I say, 8 or 9 p.m. That's Arizona time. I believe we're on the same time as the West Coast currently. So Pacific Standard Time, 8 or 9 p.m.
Arizona is one of the cool places that doesn't change with the daylight savings. So
that's right. We don't put up with that.
Well, I said
Daylight
you're
savings.
cool, but maybe you're just too hot.
Hey.
Oh, good one.
For anybody that's silly and not looking at the show notes, where do you want people to go to find out more about you and all the wonderful stuff you're doing?
I honestly think twitch.tv/Art of Blake is probably the best place to go currently. Because I don't really, I that place will have not only my stream but also everywhere else that I post stuff on occasion, as well as links to my website. If you are interested in commissions, I'm not really keen on taking them anymore right now, but if you have a really urgent request, we can talk about it. And Instagram links are there too. I believe there's also a link to my Discord and everything. So twitch.tv/Art of Blake is probably the best spot currently.
And follow you on your Discord where you get the going live announcements, so you actually find when he does go live, which is infrequent because of everything we've talked about today, including baby. And so I don't think we touched on it, but what's the long-term plan for the job? Do you plan on staying with that indefinitely before we wrap up?
I will stay with them as long as I can. I do really like the job. The work is fun and the pay is great. It's kind of like what we were talking about before, where with freelancing, I felt like I could never clock out. This job, I feel like I can, and so it's great for my sanity. As far as being able to start and stop work and not worry about it until the following day or the following Monday, it's just really nice. Also knowing that the income is consistent and sustainable, it's great. That's another big notch of stress that I don't have to worry about. Do I want to stay there forever? No, but I will stay there for as long as it's profitable and helping out my family, really. Now when I get this freelance work done and my time is freed up, I'll be working on OmenShard and other personal goals like Skillshare. I want to do more of that. And when that stuff then outweighs the importance of my job, then I have the answer, right? So but yeah, until then I'll be sticking with them, I think, for a good long while.
I'm glad it's working for you, man. You're deserving of all the good stuff, and I'm glad that it's working out for you. Our trademark final question for you, Blake. Aside from work and personal projects, what's one thing in the world that you're excited about right now?
I currently have an unhealthy obsession with Warhammer. Dude, that game is so fun. So I don't get a lot of time off, obviously, but I do have a dedicated Friday evening to go to my local game store and play some Warhammer. And that has been a great stress relief, because no matter how much you work, you always need some kind of time off, right? Even if it's only a few hours, you got to have something. And so Warhammer became that thing. And it's been super, super fun. But in addition to that, Diablo 2 Remastered was announced not too long ago, and holy smokes, I feel like a little kid again. Even just watching the gameplay videos of Diablo 2 Remastered, oh my gosh. Like, I'm probably going to be dedicating a few streams just to play Diablo 2, because that looks so freaking cool, man. It looks incredible.
If I find a way to get a copy of it, I'm going to be experiencing the expansion pack with you for the first time, because I had only ever played the Diablo 2 vanilla before moving on to EverQuest.
Nice. Hell yeah, dude. You'll love it. Oh, it's going to be so fun.
Are those all Warhammer minis on the shelves behind you?
Yeah.
I like it, man. For those,
I also have more in a case down here, because I haven't taken them out from when I played at the store, and then I got another pile down here. There's like a pile of boxes. You can kind of see them down here. Unbuilt ones. I got a lot.
For those just listening, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 shelves, and then stuff that we can't see. So Blake
Some of
ain't
these
no
are
poser.
terrain. Like these are big pieces of terrain that I've been building. But yeah, I do have a lot of miniatures. I actually recycled hobbies. I've been selling magic cards. I've been collecting magic cards for, gosh, since I was a kid, but I stopped buying them when I stopped playing after college. So I've just been selling singles and using that money to buy Warhammer. And turns out I had some cards that were worth a lot. So it's been nice recycling hobbies.
Very cool.
It's been fun.
I hope that
If
you
anybody
don't
wants to
regret any of
distract,
those. Sorry, go ahead.
I thought I was waiting for Blake to respond to your point, but it's fine.
I missed it.
If anyone wants to distract Blake during his stream, all you can do is ask to see one of his paint jobs, and he'll spend like 20 minutes talking about it and focusing it on the camera. So
No, don't.
That's
I'll never get any work done. I do it
hey
to
Blake,
myself.
what's that latest mech you painted?
No.
What about your Thousand Suns?
What do you
You
mean?
did those too, right?
No,
have
I don't
any-
play Warhammer. What are you talking about?
Do you have any orc paint jobs?
Yeah.
That's,
I've been building and painting a whole orc army, and it's awesome. And no, I'm not going to show you. Actually, I do have an alternate Instagram,
oh shit. Okay, well you
but
gotta.
we won't talk about that either.
Oh yeah,
and
we
actually-
will. We're gonna link that in the show notes too.
Oh, will we? Oh boy. But I do got to get running. I think I'm actually in trouble.
Oh shit, I'm so sorry, man.
It's okay.
I don't mean to be
It's
holding
okay.
you up, dude.
No,
Thank you.
It's good.
Thank you so much, Blake. Man, this has been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about all this, because I mean, there's a lot of emotional content in what you're talking about when you're that close to a lot of the subjects that we're talking about. It takes a brave face to talk about all of these things. So I really appreciate it. This does the world a lot of good, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, dude, of course. And thank you guys for bringing me on. You know, I do talk about a lot of this stuff on my own, Twitch channel. I'm pretty open, about stuff, because I mean, the artist struggle is real, man, and people don't really talk about it, like specifically. They just say, oh, you'll starve, you won't make money. First of all, that's not true, as long as you're working hard, but they don't tell you, what the work is. The other thing too is every artist's journey is totally different. No two people that I talk to have the same story. Like a lot of other careers that make a lot more money, being a dentist, a doctor, or a lawyer, like your paths are pretty much the same, right? But no two artists have the same success stories or failure stories. Everything is different. And I feel like people should talk about this more, because it could help prepare a lot more people and prevent them from quitting their art dreams. I know way too many talented people who stopped making art because they didn't know what they were in for, or didn't understand, or weren't warned about it, or didn't get the help or resources that they need. And so I gotta, credit the Twitch community as a whole, especially you, Moose, you, Joby, and several other people, even here in chat, like amazing people who provided great information to help bolster the success of a lot of artists, not just me, but lots of people in this community. And it's awesome. More people need to talk about this stuff.
Usually on our show, we bring in people because they've been successful at something, right? Like they're good we brought you on because you had a successful Kickstarter, for example. But we rarely bring people on to talk about like either their failures, whether that was a stretch or not called anything we talked about today a failure, maybe the health issue stuff, but or the ways that they've been stressful or struggling. And I think that that's something maybe we should be talking about more with people in their avenues, because if we jump straight to the successes, then we might be misleading people to think that if they do what X person did, they'll get that person's success without actually talking about their trials and tribulations.
Right.
And that would be maybe making people compare, as Sam Gushu has mentioned in her stream, this quote of, don't compare your behind the scenes to other people's highlights. And if we focus only on the highlights, that may be misleading to the audience here.
Yeah, it's tricky though, right? Because it can feel a bit delicate to, make that pitch. Like, hey, let's talk about the ways that things haven't turned out the way that you wanted them to. that's
basically what we did with Blake.
Pretty much, but
Blake's
you gotta
a champ.
Have a positive spin on it somehow, right? You can't just say, "Well, my Kickstarter flopped and that sucks." Right? You gotta have the positive spin on it too. Like, my Kickstarter flopped because I did this and this and this wrong, and then my next one did better, right? So you gotta have the problem and then the solution, at least in something like a podcast, or if you want to teach somebody something. So, but yeah, I mean, I do think more stuff like that does need to get talked about so that less people quit their dreams, so that they'll at least try. And if it fails, they'll understand that everybody fails, and you can still have success in the future.
Right on, man. Wise words. Well, I won't keep you anymore, dude. Thank you again. I will wave goodbye, and we'll see you again, man. We'll see you real soon.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.